Hello, my name is Dr. Scott Sherr, and today I'm going to walk you through a pattern I see more and more in people who care deeply about their health. It starts with really good intentions, trying to eat better, optimize routines, make healthier choices. This sounds like you, right? But somewhere along the way, those efforts can turn into something else. Today, we're going to explore why trying to eat perfectly can sometimes make people actually less healthy. Why we'll talk about the psychology behind orthorexia. Have you heard of this term? And food purity culture. How shame is quietly driving many of your health behaviors without you even knowing it. What happens physiologically when health becomes a moral performance. This is something that I very much know and I very much see all the time in this community. And how to restore flexibility so that health actually becomes sustainable again. And for the long term, that's what we all want, is long-term health optimization, where we live a long life as healthy as we can, and we die as quickly as possible. That's called morbidity compression for those that are watching at home. So the goal of health is never perfection. Really what the goal of health really is to be resilient, right? And that is really what I talk to my patients about all the time, and even earlier today, many times actually. Okay, so imagine this. You spend the entire week trying to eat perfectly. You get your organic groceries, you eat your protein macros, you're even seed oil free if you care about that, like no refined sugar. Then Friday night happens, right? A dinner with friends. It should be fun, but somebody orders pizza. Maybe there's dessert. Maybe there's even an alcoholic beverage, right? You laugh, you relax, you enjoy it. But the next morning, something very strange happens. Instead of remembering the connection, the laughter, the shared meal, your mind, well, it might go someplace else. What are the things that you're thinking of? You're thinking of, well, maybe I ruined my progress. I shouldn't have eaten that. What's going to happen to my abdomen? I'm going to get all swollen and inflamed. I need to reset. I need something to do here. So one meal becomes guilt. The guilt becomes, well, trying to be more restrictive again. And then this restriction causes stress on the system. And suddenly that pursuit of health, well, it starts to feel like, are you punishing yourself a little bit, right? And are you feeling shameful about not meeting those goals and doing something that was off your regimen? So, and I kind of alluded to this, but the emotional driver underneath this pattern that doesn't get talked about that much in the space, it's not fear, actually. It's not confusion. It's actually shame. And shame says this: I should know better. If I were disciplined enough, I wouldn't do this. If I really cared about my health, I wouldn't break the rules. Health, for many of us, has become a moral performance. And once health is moralized, every deviation feels like a personal failure. And this is where that shame comes in. So here's where the physiology starts to shift. When the body feels judged, even by your own mind, it doesn't interpret that as optimization. It interprets that actually as stress. And stress chemistry, what does it do? It increases vigilance. Vigilance increases control. And control tries to tighten the rules even more, which the system becomes even more rigid, and then it becomes more fragile as a result of it. You've heard of the anti-fragile aspect. This is the opposite. This is very, very fragile. This is something that repeats itself over and over again, and it can get very, very stressful. When I think about maps here, I don't think about hacks, right? I think about, what is the map here? What is the sequence that really can help all of us understand why this is happening and how we can really enjoy things? I tell my patients all the time, if they're going to drink alcohol, have it with friends, laugh a lot, have your meal, because that's relaxing. That's actually good for your nervous system. Because, okay, so before I get ahead of myself, here's the sequence. The first is, and I talk about this all the time, energy before regulation. If your system is depleted, you have a very difficult time self-regulating. And I was just reading another study recently that the more inflamed you have, the more inflammation you have in your body, the less willpower you have. This is because if you don't have enough energy and you have too much toxicity, the system cannot regulate itself. Energy production is all about that part of your cell called the mitochondria. The mitochondria are the part of your cell that help you make energy. If you can't make energy effectively, if you can't detox from it well, because energy is not free, we make reactive oxygen species what are involved in the energy production process, ROS or free radicals. You need antioxidants to bind those reactive oxygen species. If you're energy depleted, you don't make good decisions. It's very easy to make black and white decisions, but it's very difficult to live in nuance, very difficult to push against things that you may not want to do exactly because there's not enough energy available in your brain to do it. So energy before regulation is number one. Number two is safety before optimization. Your nervous system needs to feel safe before it can repair, right? Your nervous system needs to feel like it's going to be okay no matter what, for the most part, right? Knowing that it can be revved up when it needs to, but doesn't always have to stay there, okay? So the body responds to signals we send it more than the rules we impose it, right? So this is the third aspect, which is signal before structure, meaning that you don't need rigid rules. Right? So when health behaviors become rigid rules, we often accidentally remove the very signals that support regulation, okay? And so this is what happens when the system starts breaking down. The body regulates through constant feedback mechanisms through three major systems. The first one, same as before, metabolic signaling. So fuel availability, blood sugar stability, nutrient sensing. This is why mitochondrial function is so important. This is why I work with my patients all the time on optimizing mitochondrial function, looking at their vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and cofactors, looking at their gut health. This is all something that's going to help regulate their metabolic signaling. The second is, again, nervous system tone. So what is their sympathetic versus parasympathetic balance? And this is a huge, huge deal when it comes to the shame and really the fear, but really the shame of not following the rules that you've set for yourself. And of course, there's the psychological interpretation of your experience, right? Because you could have a sensation, but how does your mind actually interpret that sensation? That's really what's the big deal there, right? You can have a sensation of anything you think, but it's your mind interpreting that's causing suffering, for example. That's why I say pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional kind of thing. So when we go back to food here, when food becomes something that must be controlled perfectly, the nervous system often shifts into a subtle vigilante mode, right? Like looking for things like, oh, I shouldn't have that. Oh, I shouldn't have that. And this is what I call this sort of sympathetic trigger often goes into this pattern that I see called the sympathetic spiral of doom. And it sounds ominous, and it can be, but it's not solvable. It's definitely solvable. It's not something that can't be reversed, okay? The loop looks like this. You have stress. Well, first of all, you actually have restriction, subtle vigilante activities, vigilant state, giving you stress, right? And that stress will actually give you cravings for the things that you're not supposed to eat, that you don't want to eat. Then you deviate, then you get shame, more restriction, and the whole thing goes on. So each pass through this loop increases sympathetic activation, increases mitochondrial dysfunction over time too. Because when you have sympathetic activation, you're increasing norepinephrine, epinephrine, your stress neurotransmitters, as well as cortisol. And cortisol is a great hormone. We need it, but too much of it is going to start breaking down the body, breaking down the capacity for you to make energy. Your immune system is going to get dysregulated. You're not going to be able to digest your food. Your sleep is going to get all messed up. Hormones are going to go all over the place. You're not living in the parasympathetic mode. I call this the parasympathetic edge when people are in there because they live here and if they can, their life is so much better, even though they may not realize that might be the case. So in the parasympathetic mode, you're safe, you're connected. This is where your body can actually repair, detoxify, and recover. The parasympathetic edge isn't really important for lots of different things. If you want to build muscle, for example, you need to be in parasympathetic to be able to do that. You don't make your gains at the gym. You make your gains when you get home from the gym and you relax and you recover, not go directly to your cold plunge, not directly to your breath work. Okay, so back to this, right? So the common response to this sympathetic spiral is to double down, stricter diets, more rules, more protocols. But when health becomes rigid, we lose a very important biological variable: context. Food isn't just nutrients, it's also a signal. For example, meals shared with people we trust send powerful parasympathetic signals to the nervous system: connection, belonging, safety. And those signals affect digestion, inflammation, hormones, metabolic flexibility. This is why I often say that something about alcohol that often surprises people. It's okay to have some alcohol sometimes. Just have it with friends and laugh a lot, like those belly laughs. Remember those belly laughs, Because you're going in parasympathetic when you do that. And the connection, the physiology, it changes the whole experience. And if you just live in that moment, in that experience, there's no inflammation or very little. All the things you were worried about by having that particular food or that particular drink, They don't happen. This is why people in Mediterranean climates, Mediterranean diets, have lots of red wine. If you're drinking red wine by yourself from the bottle or even from the glass, watching TV, versus if you're having a glass of red wine with your friends and family, eating and drinking. That's why it's so important and powerful in the Mediterranean world, not because of resveratrol, not because of the antioxidants, maybe some, but not really. It's about that connection, about that change in physiology. So here's the correct sequence, okay? In health optimization, medicine, and practice, the foundational aspect of what I do, sequence really matters. So before we optimize the inputs, we have to stabilize the system. The parasympathetic edge isn't about being perfect. It's about restoring the order of operations. First, create safety, okay? Then create energy stability. So energy is so important, but safety is important too. These go hand in hand. Sequencing can depend on the person. So sometimes I do go back and forth between which is most important, but safety is really, really, really important. Then we introduce structure that the system can actually sustain. When the nervous system feels safe and resourced, flexibility will return, and flexibility is the hallmark of metabolic health. There are a lot of tools and techniques and practices that we can all think about using to help here. Some focus on nutritional strategies, some on wearable technologies, some explore mindful practices, breath work, even psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, for example, in clinical environments. They all can be powerful. Restoring the state in which the tools actually work is the key. The goal is not accumulating more tools and tools and tools. So just be aware of that. It's not often doing more, I tell my patients. It's often doing less. The benefits are dramatic. And a lot of my patients will say, hey, I need to be more focused. I need to do more. And I'm like, and they want something to stimulate them to do more. And I say, hey, wait, what if we actually take you the other route and calm your nervous system down? You're actually going to be doing more meaningful work faster and more efficiently. But it takes a little practice to get there. Okay, let's return to that dinner with friends. You had some pizza. You laughed a lot. You had a drink. If your system is regulated, the body interprets that moment very, very differently. Connection lowers your stress hormones. It increases your parasympathetic nervous system. Digestion improves. Inflammatory signals actually go down, not up. The meal becomes part of a flexible metabolic system rather than a threat to it, right? Health isn't the absence of deviation. It's the ability to absorb variation without losing regulation. And this is not just that evening, right? We're talking about the next day, being okay with it, okay? Enjoy the moment. Enjoy your cake, whatever it might be. It's okay. Now, certainly if you're on more of a stricter diet or whatever in the beginning of your health optimization journey, it may not be the right idea to go out and have a bunch of alcohol and have cake. But over time, as you get more resilient, especially when you build out your health foundation, you should be able to do these things and not suffer the consequences if you're doing it in a way that's on that parasympathetic side, right? Connection, lowering your stress hormones, laughing, just in a setting like that, you're going to be okay if you allow yourself to be. Okay, so in conclusion, if your pursuit of health has started to feel heavy, rigid, judgmental, you're feeling this shame loop, it's probably because you're thinking about things in the wrong map, in the wrong physiologic framework here, right? Because when you restore the sequence of safety, energy, signal, the body often finds its way back to balance. And sometimes the most physiologic supportive thing you can do is share a meal with people you care about. Laugh a lot and let the system remember that health was never meant to be a performance. This is something we live every day, all of us, right? The more you're involved in health, the more you think you need to be healthy all the time. And you want to be healthy because you feel addicted to health. And this is what I tell my patients. This is something that Dr. Ted, one of my mentors, like to say, that we want to get people addicted to health. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But don't forget that we're human. We need connection and that it's okay not to follow the rules all the time. Thanks so much for listening. If you like this, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Take care.